and welcome you to this month's meeting of Council. The recording of this Council meeting will be available to the public on Council's website for a minimum period of 6 months. In accordance with Council policy, I will now ask the staff to confirm that the recording has commenced.
Yes, it has, Mayor.
Thank you. We'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the South East Nation, the Malakadee people of the Yuin River and the Lilquani people of the Far South. We recognise the continuous connection to land, water and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present. In attendance tonight, we have Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Jessup, Councillor Robinson, Councillor Gibson, Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Burgess and our new councillor, Councillor, I'm going to say it wrong, aren't I?
Madsy, have a go.
Madsy.
Mrozek.
Thank you. We'll get it right. Turn your little tag around and that'll remind me. Would you like to introduce your staff, please?
Sure, thank you. With me here tonight I have our General Counsel Matthew Grimsey, I have Director of Infrastructure and Assets Frank Chen, Senior Manager of, oh sorry, no I don't, I've got Senior Planner Robin Bevilacqua and Manager of Governance and Risk Sandra Anderson. We've also got support staff Kelly Davis, ICT Business Systems Officer Connor Watson. Is Callan there as well? No, just Connor. And Executive Assistants Olga Barth and Sandy Rusdell. And I do have apologies from Director of People and Corporate, Patty Johnson, so she's been called away urgently, and Director of Community and Place Log Round is on some hard-earned leave.
Thank you. We have one apology tonight, and that is, and I'd like it noted, Deputy Mayor Thorpe would like it noted that he is absent due to an emergency medical reason. So we're thinking of you, Toby, and get well soon.
Sure he's listening.
Yeah.
He's not.
There was no leave of absence tonight. No other absence. No. Councillors, does any councillor wish to declare an interest in any of tonight's agenda? I do, in closed council. I'm not even sure what it's. I've got a standing. It's 19.042/24 and 19.043/24. I have a standing conflict with my husband working at Duggins. So. Okay, confirmation of minutes 4.009/24. Do I have a councillor to move a motion that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council 31st July 2024 as circulated be confirmed? Councillor Jessup and Councillor O'Neill. Do any councillors wish to report any changes? That's the case. I'll put the motion. All those in council, all those present, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. The motion is carried. Legislative items. CEO.
Yes, we have one legislative item tonight. It's the council vacancy recount. The Chief Executive Officer is tabling a certificate of election by recount dated 19th of August 2024. I'm tabling the declaration of office made by Councillor Lucas Mrozek. The recommendation is that the certificate of election by recount dated 19th of August 2024 declaring Lucas Mrozek elected to fill the vacant office of councillor following the resignation of Councillor Jenny Camber-Smith be received and noted, and the declaration of office made pursuant to section 321 of the Local Government Act 1993 for the office of councillor be acknowledged.
So do I have a councillor to move that? Please, Councillor Gibson, and is seconded by Councillor Burgess. So all those in favour, please.
Talk to that at all,
Well, yes, we can.
or I'd just like to say a few words about Jenny and thank her very much for her incredibly hard work that she put in the council, her dedication to make the Valley the best place she could, and her incredible ability to assimilate a lot of information and stay on top of everything. So I think she did a really great job. I'd also like to very warmly welcome Lucas Mrozek, Councillor Mrozek. Look forward to working with him, and very pleased that he's got so much skills in planning and such a strong community, positive community attitude.
Thank you for that, Paul. Go back to that now and ask all those in favour, please raise your hand. It's all councillors. So what I'd like to say there is that I was honoured to be at the swearing in of Lucas, and it was nice to see Jenny there to farewell and welcome you at the same time. And I know all councillors are looking forward to working with you, and that we hope, that you enjoy it just as much as we do. So thank you. And would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. First of all, thanks to Mayor Doyle and to our CEO for the warm welcome on Thursday. It was really a great day for myself. I'd also like to thank Sandy Rostel and Matthew Grimsey, as well as Sandra Anderson, for their support in my first days in my new role. It's been quite an exciting ride. I can only, agree to what Paul said. Jenny did a great job, and I can only hope that I can fill her boots. I certainly look forward to continue on this path of, engaging with this community to make the Huon Valley the place that its residents deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucas. Okay, urgent matters.
I have one to bring forward. Yep. So the matter is our electricity contract, an exemption from the public tender process. So in accordance with Regulation 8.6 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulation 2015, I'm reporting that the matter was not included on the agenda for the meeting as the motion was not received until the 23rd of August 2024. The matter is urgent due to the need to have procurement finalised before the expiration of current contracts. Qualified advice has been provided for councillors by way of a report to council, and the recommendation is to bring the item onto the agenda tonight.
Thank you. Do I have to do any more with that? No. Okay, we do? Yep. Okay, do I have someone to move that, please? Councillor Robinson and Councillor Jessup. And you don't need any more than that? Thank you. Yep, and I'll put that. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. The motion is carried. Okay, 7, Mayor's announcements. I have a couple that I'd just like to make note of. Andrew Scott from Scott's Brothers and all his family has achieved a small bite of a 20-year dream of getting the Tiger Fuji apple into Taiwan. Tassie's agricultural sector and regional communities play an important role in the $6 billion a year trade industry with strong demands for our fruit, veggie, wine and seafood. Tasmanian exports have bucked the nation's trend of the 9.3% decline to holding its value at $4 billion in the last financial year. So I know it's a hard yakka and from the story, but well done, Andrew and family. We've had Book Week last week and the last one this morning at Franklin Primary. So we had various councillors went to the schools in the valley and presented some vouchers for the students to buy books either for themselves or for their class. And we've received some lovely notes back to say thank you very much for that. I think it's important that we show the children the importance of what council do, and they don't see it as just the person that's telling them they can't do something or whatever. It's nice to do those things as well. So well done to the other councillors. The Pensioners Association have had some kindness and respect awards over the last 3 weeks, and Stephen Dave from DS Cafe received one, Alison from the Geefton Post Office and Hannah Lovell from Run Move Connect. I congratulate them there for what they've been doing in the community, and it will all come together for Dementia Awareness Week, and they would, to make the Huon Valley dementia friendly. So, well done to the people that have received the awards so far. I think that's all for there. Paul, would you like to do that in activities, your piece?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay, we'll do it there. That'll be fine. Public participation, 8.1, public question time. Answers to the questions taken on notice. You will find that there was a question taken on notice from Dr. Liz Smith. The response is on our website and will be included in the minutes. There was no questions given on notice from the meeting. There was questions without notice. There was one from Mr. Swan, which has been included on our website. That's correct and will be included in the minutes. So. Okay, welcome to public question time. If you have a question as a chair, I will ask you to come forward to the lectern and identify yourself by name and area where you live. To make things fair and equitable, we have a limit of 2 questions per person and we normally allocate 15 minutes. All questions must be directed to me as the chair and I will either answer the question or refer the question to the General Manager or to another councillor. Debate cannot be entered into when the council cannot make decisions on issues that are arising in public question time. So, is there anyone that would like to come forward and ask a question? Yes, Jim.
Michael Dredge, Huon Highway, Franklin.
Thank you.
It relates to the PMC.
Yep.
The PMC, the Palace Management Committee, Palais Management Committee was suspended by Council in March following some allegations that were made against the PMC on the basis of behaviour. Those allegations were investigated and were found to have no basis, I believe, although that's never been publicly acknowledged. Given the trail of events, why has Council not reinstated the PMC and why does the Council still treat the PMC with a fair deal of, I've got to say, rudeness?
Thank you for your question. Are you happy to
I'm happy-
take that one?
I'm happy to answer that. Thanks for the question, Michael. Firstly, Council has publicly acknowledged the findings of that report. We published a media release several months ago now. It still exists, although it's down the list. It's still on our news site on the website. That was released and made publicly available. And I'm happy to send you a link to that document, which is still there. As was discussed with members of the Palais Management Committee at the time, whilst no serious allegations were substantiated, there remains risks of issues of management at the Palais. But more broadly, we've got similar risks across halls across the valley, which is why Council had commenced a hall review process, which we're very close to bringing to a resolution. When we have that resolution, and as is contained in the public statement we've previously made, and as was made clear to the Palais, until we have that review complete, to add to the recommendations that were made in the Palais Theatre review that we've undertaken, until we have all that, we can't adequately address and close out all those risks. So the temporary measure is for Council to take over management of the Palais Theatre to avoid those risks that are present to both Council, to our volunteers, which we take really seriously, and to members of the public. So that's where we sit. We're trying to bring it to a resolution as quickly as possible. And I can only just add that Council's interest in this is to activate our halls, is to maximise the utilisation and have safe and effective access. And we understand that volunteers have put in a huge amount of effort, and it is very difficult for us in a quick amount of time to provide the same level of service that they have provided over a long time. But there is industrial relation law change. There's all sorts of issues that are much larger than just the activation of the space. And that's what we're diligently working through. We're trying to do it as quickly as possible. And much of this stuff should have been done a long time ago, but we are doing our best to bring it to a head and resolve it as quickly as possible. I'm sorry if there's members of the Palais that feel we're treating them with disrespect. I do have an upcoming meeting with a member of the Palais and we can address it there.
Thank you. Do I have any other questions? Yes, come forward, please.
Ms. Smith, Signet. Yes, first I'd like to thank you for the general reports because I find that there's a lot to be learned there. So in that section 11.1, activities and highlights, the report is on the Southern Tasmanian Regional Land Use Strategy, STRILLUS. And the report says that council staff participated in an online workshop led by the Chief Executive of Studio THI, who provided an overview of their research and insights on fostering change conversations within our communities. And the last sentence in that is, the council's communication and engagement team attended the workshop to learn how council can support the project team in effectively engaging with the community. So that sounds great, but then my question is, what is the time frame for engaging with the community and working on support for the aim of community understanding of and support for quality growth, and especially urban consolidation in the Huon Valley?
So I'll answer some of that. We will have to take some on notice. The timeframe, it's around getting us prepared, obviously, to support the release of STRILLUS, which has been a ongoing. Look, it should have arrived well and truly by now, and local government across the state are really pushing hard to, as well as the Local Government Association, pushing very hard for its release. That is now due for September next year, is the latest update. I share your expression.
Because we thought it was this year.
Yep.
September next year.
September next year. Notwithstanding that, there is intermediate documentation being released, like supply and demand assessments, and we're using those as you know. We're doing our own land use urban planning in Cygnet and Huonville this year. So everything we're getting out of that, we're incorporating. So it's about the team learning about that as well as and better communication techniques we can use on our own piece. So the bit that I'll come back to you on is some more clarity on timeframes of what we're doing next in that space, if that's okay.
That would be
That
very
makes sense?
good.
Yep.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Do I have any other questions from the gallery? Yes, come forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Carolyn Booker, Port Huon. I take it that everybody knows that it has been decided by council that there will be no AGM for the Palais this year. I'm wondering if there will be a media release to that effect, and also as to why council has made the decision that there will be no public annual general meeting, as there has been for every other hall in the valley, and as there always has been for the Palais. Also, how does council plan to make available to the community the financial statements for the Palais? Again, this has been done every year for at least the last 20 years, could be more, and also for every other hall in the valley. So I'm just wondering how the community will know what the financial aspects of the Palais are, and also the financial activity.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks for the question. As the committee is not currently operational, it's been suspended. That's why we're not having an AGM this year, for the same reasons that I've explained to the gentleman earlier. And as far as making financial details available to the public from our halls, we'll follow processes that we've used in the past.
Which is to have the financial statements presented at the annual general meeting.
Correct.
So I guess I'm asking, what is Plan B?
We can bring those into a council meeting. We've got various mechanisms to do that.
Okay. I look forward to reading it.
Sure. Thank you.
Do I have any other questions from the gallery? No? Okay. Thank you for that. Deputations, do we?
No,
Nil?
not tonight.
Petitions?
Not tonight.
Jen? Planning Authority. I'd like to advise that council is now acting as a planning authority as at,
6:20.
in accordance with the provisions of Part 2, Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2015, the Council will now act as a planning authority pursuant to the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act of 1993. In accordance with Regulation 25, the Council will act as a planning authority in respect to the matters appearing under item 10 of this agenda, inclusive of any supplementary items. Oh, okay, yes.
Through you, Mayor, just for the purpose of the meeting, there is an amended recommendation that has been circulated to councillors, which clarifies condition 11 and adds an additional condition 12.
All right. So, report number 10.005/24, DA 113/22024, single dwelling on lot 1, Channel Highway, Gardeners Bay, CT 184575/1. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report, and I must say, and to the amended recommendation, which is quite comprehensive, as we can see. So do I have a councillor to move that motion? Councillor Gibson, and seconded Councillor Jessup. Councillor Gibson, would you like to speak?
Yes, just to say that I had some very strong concerns about addressing the performance criteria of minimising clearance of vegetation, given that the road had already been cleared without approval and that there were some major errors in the reports supplied to our planners. But I'd really like to thank the staff very much for working so hard in the last few days to do calculations and cross-check all the regulations, as well as providing this updated recommendation with some permit conditions that partially rectify the vegetation clearance. I only have one concern, and that's minor now, which is in the stormwater and runoff. And I wondered whether, I guess I should ask as a question, so that's 10. It doesn't include runoff from the driveway in 10, and I wondered if we could change that to stormwater runoff from the gravel access road, concrete, paved or otherwise impervious surfaces, just to alleviate some pretty strong concerns expressed in the what are they called?
Do I,
just to make sure. I mean, I know that the engineering details do show the water being delivered to the Channel Highway, but I think it would be good to maybe strengthen that.
all right, can I pass that through?
Through you, Mayor, just to clarify, the condition does say stormwater runoff from all concrete, paved or otherwise sealed areas must be collected and contained.
Yeah, I was
So-
including the gravel road and making it impervious surfaces, which is actually, I think, is the way it's expressed in the planning scheme. Whereas sealed areas, otherwise sealed, it seems, I think it's a little vague around the access road.
Impervious? Okay, through you, Mayor, just checking there. So we could stormwater runoff from all concrete, paved or otherwise sealed and impervious areas, including the gravel road.
Yes. Something like that would be fine, if the seconder agrees with it.
Through your Mayor,
Yes?
the second paragraph of that condition says stormwater must not be discharged on or under a state road, crown land, or on adjoining land unless all necessary consent are obtained. Councillor Gibson, are you concerning the water get discharged from the driveway onto the Huon Highway?
Mostly the downhill property, that's what 7066, where there's some issues there at the moment, but the road isn't finished. So I mean, when it's completed, I think it'll be a lot better.
Just to clarify, Mayor, the planning comment through this was that the private access road has spoon drains on the side and culverts to direct the stormwater down the sides of the road
Yeah,
towards
so
the
that-
highway. They
yes.
will still need consent, obviously, but it is not discharging onto neighbouring property.
That's right.
It will still have to go somewhere, and the highway is where the drain is.
Yeah, but I suppose what the director was meaning was that, yeah, we do have to still get, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But I'm assuming that would be relatively straightforward if it was properly made and.
Are you?
Yeah, look, I
Ticking that box.
I don't think that the water's gonna have to go somewhere, and it's gonna go down to the highway, so that's,
We've just got to make sure
Stated
that
obvious.
happens. Yes.
well, yeah, that's a fair point.
Are you happy with that? All right, so with that wording, you happy with that? Okay. Any other, Paul, what is that?
No, that's all I have to contribute. Thanks.
Do I have any other comments like, yes?
Sorry, through you, Mayor. Was the water thing also an issue because of the heavy rain and the photographs provided with the excess of water? Was that also a concern at this point?
I think it's always a problem for the downhill property. It's a long road with a long frontage along a downhill property. I think that, yeah, but obviously it was a concern because of the unapproved works and the problems that are sort of happening now as a result of that.
So just,
Needs to be rectified.
well, yes, and just to clarify in my mind, once the road's constructed correctly and all applications have been done correctly and the water is directed where the water is supposed to go, what happens if the water doesn't go there, if we have another 100-year flood arrangement? You know, how do you modify that arrangement?
I think that's, well, I mean, if those things aren't maintained, it can become a compliance issue. That's usually the way those things are dealt with.
Because it's very difficult to deal with the weather pattern.
Yeah, well, this is about making sure that it's built in line with the design standard, the engineering designs that have been put forward and have been assessed as suitable. So what may happen into the future is not something that we can consider here and now. We're looking at what's accessible under the planning.
I just think that even though we have to apply ourselves to these things, you can never really be 100% sure that no water is going to end up on someone's property,
Oh, of course not.
you know.
But
So-
the engineers would have designed that
Correct.
with storm events. in
Well, we
mind.
know that, but do the people that have issues with water understand this situation as well, you know,
They
like
can
there's
read
that,
the documents on the
they can read the
website.
documents, yeah.
And that's what the conditions here are, making sure that this will bring the standard of work into an acceptable state.
Yeah, so just on the same point Deb's on now, so there is a natural water course and things run downhill. So obviously there's water coming from that property now to the lower property, that's just nature. So we're not going to try and force people to stop the impossible, are we?
It's only the concentration.
It's only off the road sort of thing.
It's
off
about
the
the
road,
concentration. It's
yeah.
about the concentration. That's the problem.
So we must acknowledge what is currently naturally happening as well. And I suppose, well, yeah, look, I support the planners and with their advice and their recommendations, and I'm pretty mindful of the complexity and drawn out nature of this development application. And what worries me in a general nature, not just this one, is the cost of compliance to locals trying to build a residence, especially, you know, a family and much needed housing in the Huon Valley. And I don't know how we do it, but we need to find ways of making housing more affordable. And that includes tiny homes and mobile homes as well, and utilising those. And we've just got to find ways And we've got to realise we don't live in a perfect world, but we don't want people living on the streets either.
Need to simplify the process.
Yeah.
Make it clearer.
Thank you. Do I have any other? Yes, councillor Jessup?
Mayor, I note that they're only building a relatively modest home, but they've spent a lot of money on reports, so they can maybe pave the walls with reports and yeah, echoing Councillor O'Neill's concerns. Yeah, I note that this motion, to my hesitancy, adds in further reports that we want them to get. So, you know, there's another $10,000 worth of cost. But the issues for me, I suppose, are that we do want people to be able to build on their properties, but it makes it very difficult for council when things are done maybe in the wrong order or when they shouldn't have been done. And I think all ratepayers need to sort of pause before they start digging and talk to council and accept that when you buy a property that may be a beautiful block and might have a whole heap of opportunities. I was discussing this with the planner before the meeting, saying that they might look great and cheap to start with, but just the compliance costs. That unfortunately we don't set those rules. So, we have to live with them, and the nature of the blocks become very expensive. I am satisfied. I think that the ratepayers have actually done a fair bit of work to try to understand how to do it better, and the proof will be in the pudding that they do spend the money upgrading the drains and stuff like that. But I'm comfortable supporting this motion because at the end of the day, that's a compliance issue that we will look at that and we'll work with them to rectify any issues. I'll also call out the planners. I note we made the decision to get an independent planner to assess this, which I think was a really smart move, because the volume of work involved with it, and we have a lot of planning permits to approve anyway. But I'm reasonably comfortable with that. So somebody with independent of any previous decision has been involved in the decision making. So I think it's probably been fair for all parties. And I do understand that neighbours get comfortable with the situation that they're in, and I note the representations are not saying that they don't want, or one of them in particular, it's not that they don't want the people to live on the land that they own, it's just that they want to make sure things are done as with as minimal impact as possible. So look, I thank the planners for all the work and the comments and the engagement we've had over the last week of countless number of emails. But thank you to it.
Thank you very much. Is there any other further? Paul, if there's not, have you got to close or?
Only to say, and this is outside the planning scheme, that I would encourage the applicant very much to talk to the neighbours, try and build bridges as much as possible, and I think that the very strange U-bend in the driveway says a lot. That good neighbours are important, and I think that accepting that you've made a mistake, and as I said, building bridges, it may be possible to avoid the extra expense of that U-bend and have a much more sensible drive, which would allow the other owners at the end of the road to still access their property.
Can I just butt in there? I think that's a bit out of line, really, Paul, because you haven't heard the other end of the conversation. You don't know whether the neighbours have talked. You're hearing it from talking to the neighbours.
Building bridges.
Yeah, but
Simple.
it's not up to us to build bridges. Like, this is obviously a dispute.
That's okay. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. Okay, we'll put that to the vote, and I will ask all those in favour of the amended motion with the wording. Yes, with the wording change.
On part 10, yep.
Yep, to part 10. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. The Mayor will advise that the council is no longer acting as planning authority. As at?
6:35.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for that. General reports. Are there any councillors tabling their activities tonight? Yes, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Jefferson? Yep. Councillor Armstrong?
Yep.
Burgess? Would anyone like to speak to them?
If I may, Mayor, look, I know we would be doing a report on the local government meeting, but the first 4 days of this month, I had the honour, I think is a good term, of being able to attend that major national event with the Mayor and Deputy Mayor and Councillor Gibson in Canberra. It was really quite insightful. Not only hearing what other councils are experiencing in terms of many of the similar issues that we are, but also to see the level of engagement from the federal government with the whole process. We had access to, on the final day, there would have been 6 or 7 ministers, but at one of the events, the dinner, there would have been the Prime Minister and a whole range of senior ministers. So it does actually give some solace that local government isn't ignored. They haven't increased our funding to the level that we want yet, which is about half of what it was when funding grants were established. But there was some good engagement, and I think the issues that we deal with here around building our infrastructure better after storm damage and things like that is certainly on the agenda across the nation, and hopefully we'll get some traction from the federal government on supporting that notion. So thank you to the council for letting me attend that.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Gibson?
Yes, I was going to talk on the ALGA conference as well. It was really worth going to. I came back really feeling quite empowered and ready to help the council, and also proud of where Huon Valley Council is at and where we're heading. It was interesting to compare other councils across the country. The subject of the conference was trust in local government, and there was a lot of talk about how there's a worldwide trend of decreased trust in government, and how that's really quite hard for local government to deal with, and there's not a very good mechanism these days for getting the message across, because there's also lack of the way media's changed, and the lack of trust in media, and the lack of neutrality in social media was discussed. There was a lot of talk about financial sustainability and the fact that the federal government no longer gives the same funding to local councils, which basically becomes an extra tax on ratepayers, because local government is forced to basically get money for the budget out of rates, and there was encouragement for people to complain to the federal government, not to us, which I thought was interesting. There was quite a lot of figures about the fact that local government has a third of the infrastructure and two-thirds of the roads in the country and 1% of the budget. And a lot of talk about local government being very good financial managers and basically doing things on the smell of an oily rag, which we know from working here. That's the way it is. The climate change was a big issue. I sat in a workshop with a whole lot of other councillors, and there was a panel of SES insurance, all of the government bodies that basically help when there's a disaster. And the main thing that it was quite sobering actually, because the other councillors there had quite a bad time. They had multiple floods, fires, and there was quite a depressed mood. But they were really pushing the fact that there's just not enough money spent on preventative funding, and it's all sort of trying to mop it up at the end. Way too much paperwork, delays in the funding, and lack of kindness and care from the federal government. There's a fair bit of complaint. And state, yes, yeah. And the fact that, as Councillor Jessup mentioned, funding doesn't allow for building back better, which is something that we really try to do. There was a lot of interesting talk about demographics, which it's probably more of an internal council thing, but you know, the ageing population does require us to be very proactive in the way we employ people. And the last thing which I thought was interesting was about planning for social capital, and there was planners and a whole lot of people talking about how to avoid urban sprawl, and the fact that that's basically driven by the availability of cars, and the fact that the resulting infrastructure costs 7 times the sort of model which predates cars, which they refer to as the European model, and also how bad that the urban sprawl model is for lifestyle and mental health outcomes. So it encouraged me very much in what I already wanted to sort of emphasise in council about densifying our towns, not sprawling, avoiding ribbon developments and urban sprawl. Yeah, and there's a whole lot of models that have been looked at for that. And there was some other things, but they were the main item.
Yeah, thank you. I think what I got out of that main was what we brought back to the council was connections, which I know that there's been some meetings had since then, since Canberra, and I don't mean just political as in you know, the Prime Minister or the whatever. It's more grassroots, it's more the connection to departments that you can find out the correct pathway to be able to get things done. So yeah, I think that's been very valuable that I've found every time I've gone.
There were 2 other things in my activities, which was I went to the BCALM opening launch, which was great. Really good to see some engagement with the community on the climate change issue, and also, as you mentioned, Mayor, handing out prizes to the book week. Kindergartners just seem to get smaller every year,
I know.
and cuter.
Yeah, yeah, they are, aren't they? Yeah. Yeah, I was lucky on 2 of my schools that they dressed up as, one was a recycling truck and one was a rubbish bin, putting their rubbish in correct. So it was just a bit of a no-brainer for me. It was everything that I thought was great. So yeah, so well done to them. Okay, any others? No? We've got Councillor Robertson with a sore throat tonight, and I know that. Yeah, you can.
I'll just briefly mention that I was honoured to step in for you, Mayor Doyle, and open the NAIDOC Week art exhibition at the Hub last month, and that was fantastic. It went by too quick before I could get my kids there to look at it.
Yeah.
And the comment that Tasmania punches above its weight, we had a Tasmanian win one of the national NAIDOC awards in art. So that's pretty spectacular for us and worth acknowledging. And I, with Mayor Doyle and Councillor Thorpe, I attended the Legat AGM and General Meeting and an elected members day up in Devonport. And I found that very interesting and useful too. I think along similar lines, I think if we view the task as turning up to meetings and making decisions, then we're actually only doing a small amount of the work and task that there is to do. So understanding directions, influence, possibilities, and building that experience and variety of perspectives by interacting with others from other councils is really useful.
Thank you. Okay, So recommendation 11.008/24, do I have a councillor to move a motion that the general reports and minutes, the period 1st to the 31st of July 2024 be received and noted? Do I have a councillor to move that motion, please? Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Gibson. Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor O'Neill? I just have a couple of things just quick that I was going to say in my mayor's comments, but they're in the general reports. TAS alerts. We all know that we've got some flooding. I think that the most important message that we can give is that if everyone, the one protocol is TAS alerts. You got anything further to say to that?
That's the most up-to-date. It's an available resource. It is the most up-to-date for road closures, weather warnings, etc. That's your best source of truth, not what's being said on Facebook or what council might have to say, because we might be just that couple of minutes behind TAS alerts.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And the other one is medical. I'd just like to mention and thank our hard-working frontline medical staff. These staff are a big reason why our medical services are so valued by the community. And it has shocked and confused me recently to see some pretty terrible online comments directed at some of them. All councillors understand that community is frustrated with our medical staffing challenges, and we are doing everything that we can to fix this situation. The community can help us enormously if they could just be kind to the dedicated staff that we have. So anything out of that, please take that on board.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll pass that on to, yeah.
And we'll do, yep.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor O'Neill, do you wish to? Yeah, sorry, yes.
Question about,
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
in the general reports. It was just around the climate change policy. I'm really looking forward to seeing the draft climate change policy. The embedding mainstream council climate action. So my understanding, as best I could sort of unpack that, is that there's going to be workshops to co-design climate action plans, which will then transfer the responsibility to act and to report to certain teams. And the survey results and workshops will guide these and be conducted at regular intervals. So my question was, are these existing teams or new, and what's the makeup of the teams, and who will drive the climate change aspect and by what mechanism?
So our climate change officer is the driver of this, and it won't be new teams being developed to do this. We already have, and one of the big kind of, I guess, learnings, knowing that it was there, but once we had the resource to go through and actually explain to existing teams, they were already making significant contributions to climate change adaptation already in what we do. Multiple councils have mentioned here tonight, the work we do in building back better after events, which is saving us money from future weather-related problems, future-proofing, and saving us money and disruption to people's lives. So all of those type of things we do already are actually climate change adaptation activities. If we can do them in a more proactive way, rather than building back better, do it through works proactively, which we are actually also doing in the drainage works and the extension of upgrading culverts on private properties as we do our reshedding program.
So these are the teams, these are the sorts of
These
teams.
are the kind of teams where that's just an example out of infrastructure, but we're through the surveying of staff and what we're already doing, putting together those discrete user groups to understand the contribution they're making, and just to bring that in and collate it all into one area so that we can understand across the board what we are already doing, as well as what we may need to, where the gaps are, and then what we need to do to respond to those.
And so then those teams will drive this transfer of responsibilities. They then drive their own climate change sort of once the policies in place, their own objectives.
Well, it's about embedding climate change as just business as usual.
Yeah.
So, and look, climate change can be a triggering word, but it's just about it's adapting to a changing climate, whatever the causes of that might be. Yes, making it standard practice to, as we have to renew assets, we make sure that we consider changing climate conditions, and the responsibility of that is within the asset management team, for example, to just accommodate that and plan for it and cost it into their budgets, rather than relying on someone with climate change in their title. It just becomes part of everyone's daily job.
Yep, great. That's good explanation. Thank you very much.
Yes, Councillor Jessup.
I'll just mention in passing that we still have a deferred motion on the table, and let's not get the implementation of the policy too far ahead of the strategy, because that's our job, not the council staff's job. I had 3 comments on the reports, and I'm sorry if I'm not quite sure which page. It was a long agenda, but the annual quarterly plan I thought was a really impressive document and really informative. So thank you for that. And I think it's probably worthy of a bit of a time in a workshop to drill down on some of the issues line by line, and you know, like Paul was saying, some of those specific issues around where we're going, but there's a lot to digest there. I note on page 413, and for those people who haven't got all the way through, the members of the public, but there's some really interesting stuff there on our capital works program, and I'm sure I'll mention them in my Facebook posts. But yeah, 85% of a $3 million roads program completed. But I'd also like to drill down again, so we have a bit more knowledge of this and can promote the work that we're doing. Like there's $1 million worth of building, so I know there's bits and pieces like toilets and stuff like that. But again, yeah, that's an impressive capital management program to run, and my congratulations to the team that's doing that. There's a lot of projects there, a lot of work there. The other one is the Jobs Network, the SETN or whatever it's, however we pronounce it, and that's something I campaigned on a bit a couple of years ago in the election campaign, because I didn't think it was running as quickly as it could have been running, and I note that there's been a bit more movement on it. But I'd like maybe now, given that it's 3 years into maturity almost, that I would actually like to start seeing some hard results. Yeah, there's a lot about we do a bit of governance here, and somebody's resigned, and we've employed somebody, and Yeah, how many workshops have you done at schools? How many job seekers have you engaged with? How many, God forbid, placements have you facilitated? So it's the government's given the council a big bucket of money, over $1 million, well over $1 million bucks, and I think that we should be starting to say, well, what are some of the results? And I know that's not a direct equation that you can go for every dollar spent as a job created, but it just seemed to be that report seemed to be a bit devoid of hard facts. So
agree entirely, and it's it is a single authority of council, which is why we're reporting on it like this. And as it is an authority of ours, I agree we need to see more direct outcomes. I have now been to my first board meeting, and the Kingborough's new CEO has also been, I think he's been to 2 now. We've subsequently caught up to collect our thoughts, and we've got a meeting with Jobs Tasmania, I think it's next week, to understand what their expectations of the program are, and it's all targeted around, yep, I thought so. So you will be hearing more soon about that, because we definitely want it to be able to demonstrate the good work it's doing, or encourage it to do to change tack. Yep.
And look, at the end of the day, I think the possibility here is that this is potentially some ongoing funding if the government keeps to this path, but the government's only going to commit money in a tight budget if it performs to how they want. And yeah, I through my own business, we work with a number of the jobs hubs around Tasmania, and they're all very different. But yeah, some of them really do generate lots of employment opportunities for people, and so I'd love to see that happening down here.
Thank you. Yep, I'm pretty sure that Canberra CEO as well as our own want that as well.
Yeah, but appreciate the comments because that
Yeah.
that will be useful.
Thank you.
One of your annoying councillors have asked for more information. Thank
Well
you.
done, yep.
My pleasure.
Okay, do I have, yes, councillor, and then councillor Armstrong, councillor Thompson.
You've had me bang on before about the planning statistics, and I note we're still sitting on that pile of about 170 DAs. Maybe not surprising when there's 300 odd pages in a single one. But any comment on progress towards reducing that outstanding balance of applications that's got to go through the system, and perhaps a request to take that issue to workshop? We've seen an example tonight of some of the challenges that could be slowing that process. Working hard is an option, but is there other ways we can work smarter at this?
Pass that through.
Sure. Look, without the director here tonight, I won't go into the detail other than to say that they are working on options. They're also grappling with the change to the TPS. So there's never a good time, right? Always an excuse. But we're obviously invested in trying to get through this backlog as well, and we've explained the reasons for that backlog and where things are actually sitting and where our power lies to progress some of them. Absolutely open to having a workshop with councillors to progress it more. It's in everyone's interest.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong?
Through you, Mayor, I just wanted to touch on what Councillor Jessup was saying a minute ago about this Jobs Hub. It's come to my attention that some of the people that probably should be knowing about this don't. I don't think it's a widely known fact that it even exists. Yep. I don't know whether it's offered in the school or the tertiary education system. I don't know how it connects to everything else, and nor do they. I mean, I suspect it connects through other job opportunity places, but I don't know how you go about bringing it to the forefront for the Huon Valley residents. I mean, obviously in Kingborough, it's probably more known because it's a bigger place, or not necessarily.
I don't think so.
No.
And that's exactly what we're now doing. And like I said, I've been to one board meeting, but it has taken a significant amount of time to establish, and now it needs to show results, and results are totally contingent on being known.
Because it's been around for a while, and it is costing a lot of money, and there's I don't know, I'm just not hearing really good things about the productivity of it, but I'd like it to be productive because I think in theory it sounds good, but I don't know if we can work to push it out there a bit more somehow.
I believe that we'll see some improvements in that communication maybe, and
Yeah, we're aligned. And again, it's appreciated to have that here on the record of where councillors want this to go.
And I do recognise the difficulty of this job hub versus, say, Glenorchy, which is central and a defined space. And I know that they're trying to meet the challenge of having dispersed communities. But yeah, it's time to move on from the governance and hit the performance button.
practical. No, and like we said, it's good to have that on record.
Yep.
So, okay, we have any other, Councillor O'Neill? Oh, you've got one. Oh, yes, sorry, no, look, one, Lucas, yep.
Just a brief question. Oh, thank you, Mayor. Just a brief question on the planning statistics as well. It says that there were no applications approved under general manager delegation during July. Looking through the statistics, there is a section saying there's been a number of 17 discretionary applications approved on page 372. So am I just reading the numbers or incorrectly looking into the wrong table?
can explain.
Miss, thank you.
Through you, Mayor, so just explaining our delegations. So where there are no representations received, they can be approved by the Senior Manager Development Services. Where there is a representations received up to 2, then they are the ones that are approved by the Chief Executive Officer, the General Manager. So there were none which had representation which were approved by in that month.
Thank you for clarifying.
No, that's a good question to ask, because then the public also understand when they read. So, well done for that. No other, yes, Bob?
Just a question around the NRM, which has roughly 1.5 FTE investment. I guess the question is this keeping pace with the weed problems in the valley? And I didn't see many performance criteria around that. There's lots of things about connecting and meeting and things, but as far as data collection around, what's actually going on and really grappling with issues, I didn't see any performance.
Sure. Look, the connecting and meeting is about,
I know it's important.
well, it's our best shot because it's about empowering the community to look after themselves. I mean, you couldn't throw enough resources from this council to deal with the weed problem in the Huon Valley. And I mean, that's why the state has let go of some weeds, and they're just they're endemic now, and we just let them. That's probably the wrong word, but they're here to stay, and they're no longer one that we're actively targeting. So the meetings and the engagement is the critical piece that we do to empower the community and give them the skills to do it. But I'll take back the getting some further clarity on KPIs and what the outputs are.
Yeah, and measuring what the emerging problems are, because the nature of weeds is always about get on it before it becomes a problem.
Absolutely.
And I know we do that. But
Yep. And when we do it, I mean, the way that the public can see that is as soon as we find weeds, and we do find them, like the first instance of an outbreak, we do a pretty good job, I think, of communicating that and where it was found and what the sort of the blast radius is, and our NRM officers are very go into really target that area. And we've seen that with things like Patterson's Curse over the last few years and things, and managed to keep those things contained.
Yeah.
I think largely through the efforts of our 1.5 FTE, so they do a damn good job.
yeah,
for what
but
they've
those sort of initiatives didn't come out through in the report.
got. Because they just none have happened this month.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They're ready and they're waiting. Always vigilant.
Ready to pounce.
Yeah. All right,
So
so,
I'll take the comment on about, if we want to include statistics on the times those type of events are actually occurring, so you can just see through the year. So, thank you.
all right, so do you have, yeah,
Sorry, just quickly. I just wanted to touch on the new, what do you call that? The way station?
The weighbridge?
The weighbridge, yes, the weighbridge. So the question I've been receiving from a lot of concerned residents, because it's all about rubbish and cost of rubbish. Will the cost of rubbish vary from waste transfer station to waste transfer station now that there is a weighbridge? Will it be comparative with a bag of rubbish? Like, would the cost be around the same, or will it vary dramatically or not dramatically? Because there seems to be this, it needs to be about the same, or it's going to come across as being unfair,
Sure.
so can we confirm that?
We've got in the fees and charges this year, we made provision for the weighbridge arriving, and that is weight-based, as opposed to our volumetrics that we've always used, and which the community have not appreciated, given the perceived potential for overcharging, but I know it does go both ways. So for things like the single bags and things like that, which are very much very important to people, and we only introduced into this current year and have been really successful as a means. So they're on the weighbridge. So the weighbridge point of sale thing, it's not worth weighing single bags and things like that. So they still just charge a single bag. So there absolutely is parity there. But ultimately the weighbridge is about fairness and charging people by the weight, the real matter that they're generating.
So how do we, as a council, How do we manage the other waste transfer stations that don't have a weighbridge?
They will continue with their volumetrics.
Okay. So very much.
We don't know yet because we haven't had point of sale weighing
Because those are the
ability.
questions that people are asking me, and I don't know either because I don't know about volumetrics because that's not my thing.
What we will start to understand though is because we transport waste between waste transfer stations, we will understand the total weights that are coming out from Signet, for example, as they arrive at Huonville. And we can reverse calculate from there to actually understand if our volumetrics are approximating the weight base.
Yep.
So fairness is one thing, but it's also, a pretty expensive exercise, a necessary exercise because of the volume that actually goes through Huonville, and we're preparing for the future.
Yep.
So we had to do the weighbridge there, but we're a long way away from being able to justify the cost of weighbridges at those other
Yeah.
waste transfer stations. So if we want to keep them open, we've got to be realistic about the type of facilities we can have there. And if people ultimately are concerned or feel they'll get a better deal by going over the weighbridge, then they can always drive to the weighbridge.
I did actually say that just so that they could give themselves a measure to go by if they wanted to.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was, thanks.
And I think too that there's a lot of misunderstanding on the cost,
Absolutely.
how much it does cost
Yeah, waste is
council
expensive.
to take landfill to Copping.
They're a bit surprised when you tell them the
Not
cost.
only landfill, and can I, just a gratuitous sort of statement here.
Yeah.
We recently received so all Southern Tasmanian councils have had a 17% increase in the cost of recycling. There's one recycling centre for Southern Tasmania. The large proportion of that increase is due to contamination in recycling bins. And it's a relatively, we're doing education, lots of councils are doing education about what you can and can't put in your recycling bin. And we know that there's valid mistakes that people make, but we also know there's an element of the community that are putting astounding things, nappies, all sorts of stuff that you just know that is not recycling. It's not wish recycling, it's just not. And the reality is, whether you believe in recycling and care about the planet or whatever else, it's hitting people's hip pocket at the rate of 17% a year, and is only going to increase if we can't control our behaviours. There's nothing council can do about that. We can't go out and inspect people's yellow top bins. We need people to recycle better to manage the costs.
Sorry.
No, you're right, keep going.
So I was speaking to some clients that have just been to Flinders Island, and obviously smaller island and whatnot, but they said they've got this really good system where they actually have stations outside places where people can, it's just little things like toothbrush, toothpaste, these sorts of things, which is a bit similar to the cartridges, I suppose, at the thing. Have we ever thought about doing that?
We have,
Yeah.
we've got them.
Yeah, I know, but at the
Dover.
tip.
Yeah, there is at our transfer
So people can
station.
actually sort
Yeah.
through the bits and
Yeah,
pieces.
yep, there is.
'Cause I don't think Signet hasn't though, has it?
Signet doesn't.
No.
We'll be doing more to encourage separation, and particularly at Huonville prior to going over the weighbridge, encouraging people to think about it as they go round the loop past all the recycling bays, get it all off your trailer, and it's going to save you money when you get to the weighbridge. The fine scale toothbrush, etc., recycling is very expensive for how much
Well, that's what I sort of
impact it
thought
makes.
too. I think this is very different to a bigger population.
Yeah, and it's a great thing. We do have a successful
Yeah.
one happening in Dover by invested community members that are really championing that. We have looked at expanding it, but it's cost prohibitive for the benefit that we get out of
Yeah,
it.
that's what I sort of thought, but I thought that model sort of sounded like it could be good. But I didn't realise that they do that because we.
Yeah, they have got different, not all, but they have certain bins at the transfer station down here. Yeah, yes.
Continue on with waste. Possibly something to bring up at the LGAT section, but might as well bring it up now. But anything that LGAT can do to prompt Minister Gench to sign that bit of paper to get the container deposit scheme in place would be a jolly good thing. I'm aware that the other tenderer, which I had some involvement with, was informed over a year ago that they weren't successful. So somebody is dragging the chain somewhere, and that will make a big difference for us. So that was one comment. Second comment, Are we channeling our commercial waste partners more towards the weighbridge? Is that part of the deal, or can they go and put concrete or something wherever they want to put it? Is there a bit of a attempt to focus that, or?
We're going to see what the results start to look like and then decide. I mean, we've made modifications like accepting concrete, for example, which we know is difficult for people trying to tip that kind of waste, but where we don't have we have nowhere to take it ourselves. So commercial waste has been an issue. It's actually, with the building boom down here slowing down a bit, it's actually the level of urgency has backed off a little bit, which is a good thing. But Cygnet, there was a time where Cygnet's bins were being filled up like in the blink of an eye by commercial trucks, and then we were transshipping. But it's calmed down. We're just going to see what the data tells us and decide what next.
Full points to the timber recovery guy at Southbridge who volunteers his time to pull timber out, or was, or.
They're amazing down there, and all the art that the team have done, just in their own, just the love and care for that site, and just the excitement they have for the investments that are happening down there to make it better for the customers. There's such a great crew down there.
And obviously, I'm not going to let you forget that we do want to do some small scale FOGO in the valley, so composting. So that would be, and Paul's put his hand up for Cygnet to be first.
It's a great site.
I'd love to see some of those container composting plants in our next year's budget.
You can be rest assured at the TasWaste board.
Yes.
I do let them know your thoughts, Councillor Jessup. Okay, we might move on. Councillor O'Neill, do you have any closing?
Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. If you're wondering what it was to accept the general reports. Thank you. Thank you. Would you like to speak about our workshops briefly? Thank you.
Not really, my throat is very sore, but I'll have a go. So on the 14th of August, we had our LPS hearing outcome TPS transitioning workshop. So the Director of Community in Place provided a briefing on how the decision was made, how it impacted us, and the relevant next steps for both statutory and strategic planning. I led a discussion regarding a LGAT-led, Local Government Association of Tasmania-led CCTV project for rural councils, which is currently underway and which will introduce further rollout of CCTV cameras in the Huon Valley. And we also had a discussion, given we were welcoming a new councillor to the crew. We had a discussion around our working relationships and welcoming that councillor on board.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor questions. There was no questions taken on notice from July's council meeting. 13.2, there was no councillor questions given on notice. 13.3, councillors, are there any questions without notice tonight? Councillor Robinson?
So a question about when retrospective development applications should be used. They need to take this on notice. Could council please outline its current view of when a retrospective development application is required and communicate this information in an accessible way to our community?
Thank you very much. Do we take that one?
Do you want to have a crack at that now? Or?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, I think we do need to take it on notice. At the end of the day, any person who has undertaken development unlawfully still has the opportunity to apply for that as a proposed development. So there's effectively no such thing as a retrospective approval. What council considers is actually a proposed use or development. Now, the fact that something is there doesn't mean that that's what is going to ultimately be approved in the end, and that development needs to be brought into conformity with the scheme to be able to be approved. But we can just have a look at what, how we can explain this. But any person who has done unlawful use of development has a right to make an application
I
for that
suspect
proposed use of development.
I suspect the non-compliant ones aren't coming to you to ask for, to put applications in. So I'm assuming it would be the more compliant ones that would.
So what you're asking for though is that we provide some guidance to the public to determine this?
We've seen a couple of a couple of applications in the past couple of months where, so there's been works without permit, there's been some compliance action taken on those, and then there's potentially been a retrospective DA, and I know in our fees, we charge double for those retrospective applications. But that makes sense as a disincentive to, or an incentive to apply first, which makes sense. But what would the circumstances, and it's easy to say, I did the work last year and I forgot to put a permit in. But if you bought a property and the work was done before you owned it, or you simply weren't aware, or you were misguided in some way, or you got over enthusiastic and kept building, or whatever the situation is, or the scheme changed along the way and you weren't aware of it. So I think it's in the same vein of trying to find ways to make our planning system work more effectively, and that's an area that obviously causes complexity for our planning assessments. How can we understand it well and know that we're putting in effort best to get those applications done first and encourage that, but also efficiently recognise and bring to standard any risks or liabilities that are existing out there in the community.
Yep. Okay. Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other? Yes, councillor Gibson.
Interestingly, on the same subject but a different angle, can council apply fines to machine operators for doing unapproved work? Is there some mechanism?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I just think it's a better way to apply the fine, because it stops the work happening right at the beginning. Is that something that we could explore?
There has been fines.
Yeah. So we can and have.
I think if we had a system where there was always a fine for unapproved work to the operator, they just wouldn't unload the machine until they saw the paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
And it would save us a lot of work and save the applicants a lot of heartache.
We had a particular compliance issue some time ago, and during that I reached out to a number of operators to understand the situation from their perspective. And while we can do this, I think we need to actually just test it a little bit more around the industry, the impact it would have on industry. And it's probably going to be that if we do it and make it a concerted, change of compliance approach, that we'd want to add to that. And this council has spoken about it before, that we'd want to lead with education first. I think that we owe that to the industry, the operators themselves, because it would put a greater burden on them. Yes, they should know already. But that would be what I'd encourage, that we start with some education, some industry testing, and then make a decision based on that.
Do I need to move a motion about that, or are you happy to
I think we can just take that and
We take that. And through you, Mary, it isn't black and white. There may be circumstances where somebody is clearly doing works that are exempt. Now, does that mean that every person that wants to do those works now has to run off to council to get some sort of a letter or an assessment? So there is a balance associated with it.
That's what I'm talking about, is that compliance, that burden, that administrative burden that would hit us as well as the operators. We just want to work out what's going to be most effective.
Okay. We'll talk more.
Yeah,
It's a good one,
but being passed in that area, telling people you can't do that work because they haven't got the paperwork doesn't stop Joe Blow from coming along and doing the work. So as you say, education has to be, because it becomes, Yes.
But that's the same point, Sally, that you could also drive it underground and just do,
Yeah.
well, obviously cash jobs do already happen, but
yeah,
you could make a lot more.
yeah, that's right. Okay. Any other questions? No? All right. 13.4, notice of motion. 3 notices of motion? No? Okay. 15.1, report number 15.025/24, Local Government Association Tasmania, general meeting motions for the 4th of September 2024. I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move the motion, please? Councillor Jessup. And a seconder, Councillor Robertson. Do you wish to speak to this, Councillor Jessup?
Mayor, I only have one query, I suppose. One query and 2 comments. The 2 comments was one about when you're at Elgate, can you see if there's any chance of raising the container deposit scheme? But also the other one that came up during my posts around tiny homes, and thank you for whoever sent me some information saying that we have raised tiny homes with Elgate in the past, and it seems to be a lot of spin, very slow movement, and it would be good
Can we
to...
give you an update on that?
Sure.
So through you, Mayor, this council did pass a motion which was accepted by Legat to progress the need to provide for and regulate appropriately caravan occupation, tiny homes and those sorts of things. So Legat has, whilst they've taken it off their report, general meeting report, the matter is with the State Planning Officer doing some work on it. The delays are properly engaging with CBOS in relation to building requirements. So Legat continue to work on it. That is something that I was assured. We can keep knocking on the door of Legat. The hold-up really is, as we understand, in CBOS.
It'd be good even if it gets back onto the regular
Well, we've got something else to tell as well.
Oh, yeah, there's more.
We're unpacking, only this afternoon.
Matt might have seen this because it only came in this afternoon,
Right.
but
Yep.
Legat released their housing position statement, which I'll circulate to you guys. Sorry?
I'll circulate in the morning.
Yeah, thank
Yep.
you.
That does include the tiny homes and, in addition, just flexible housing options more broadly. It also brings through all the comments that I've heard in my time at the General Manager roundtables around all the various housing complexities that we face as local government, and it is a compliance nightmare, and they have done an outstanding job of this position statement. Honestly, they have nailed it. So we'll share that around, and that picks up on so it's very much still on their agenda, and they've packaged it up in a fantastic way that does hit all of the real challenges from strategic land use planning through to developer contributions and headworks and things like that, and then right down to tiny homes and flexible housing. So it's really fantastic.
Yeah.
I went to the Planning Matters Alliance meeting on the weekend, which was an interesting experience, which I'll share with you after the meeting maybe. But talking to one of the South Hobart associations, were there about the sort of purposeful community in South Hobart, which the name of which, Paul, you might remember, the one I forget, that it allowed for multi-residential building there. But it was interesting, his description of that was, well, that was a planning experiment that the state government did once and they've never done again. So we've obviously dipped our toe into these waters, but yeah, the case last month that we had, and I know you've met with them since then, and just sort of feedback that we've all been getting around people wanting to help each other out by providing alternative structures, but basically council being made to look like the bastards in the scene because we have to enforce building codes and things like that. Yeah, that's right. And, so that was the two general comments. But the question actually with one of the motions was the definition of substantial commencement, which I think is a really good thing. I was talking to a developer actually from the East Coast yesterday who was joking about he just needs to put a shovel in the ground and it's substantial commencement. The only question that I have though is, would it be better to argue that we have a better state definition rather than putting the onus back on each council to define, we've spent all this money on this statewide planning brouhaha, and now that motion saying, well, let each council determine what substantial commencement is.
Can I respond to that, Mayor? So certainly there needs to be some certainty and guidelines as to how you measure substantial commencement, but somebody has to do that measurement in the context of the development that is being undertaken.
But you're saying it's sort of idiopathic to each development?
Yes, it's a qualitative assessment, it's not quantitative. You can't really say I've done 25%.
So could we ask for maybe some statewide guidelines with a level of latitude that
And there are some guidelines which have been issued from a number of court decisions. So what it really needs is somebody to pull those together, which is just a bit of a guide document, so we can bring that up with the State Planning Office. But certainly, I think it's not a perfect outcome, but councils are the ones who are dealing with developers. Somebody needs certainty in this process. So it's not the best outcome for council because it involves us in making other decisions, but it's certainly, we're the closest to it.
So we still determine what substantial commencement is, don't we, at a council level?
We would be applying what the existing law is and then saying, here it is, and yes, this development ticks those boxes.
So this motion is really saying scrap the existing law and allow...
We keep the existing law as the guidance,
Yep.
but it would be council who actually decides. So if council makes it at the moment, no, council, we can, all right, a court. So at the moment, somebody comes along and says, oh, I don't know whether I've started within 2 years, I've dug a couple of holes over there. We come along and say, oh, yeah, we think you've substantially commenced. They go ahead. An adjoining owner says, no, I don't think you have, goes to the Supreme Court. It doesn't matter what we say. The Supreme Court is the determinatory of whether something is substantially committed. So we need something in the middle, and a TASCAT appeal process takes it away from a very expensive uncertainty.
So we would basically, under that, what they're proposing, issue a certificate of substantive commencement.
Substantial commencement or something like that.
Which could still be challenged at TASCAT. But, yeah, okay. So
It'll have
puts
some
it into
certainty.
the normal planning system.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And that would be on a case-by-case basis?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're not, this doesn't happen every day. The most things that we have substantial commencement are quite often subdivisions, and there's the ability to get two-year extensions, and maybe there's some over some development, but it's not a regular sort of a thing. But if they're in the situation, the developer needs certainty. Can I go ahead or can't I go ahead? Representors need certainty. They'll come along and say, well, I thought this was dead, this permit, and 8 years on, and we're saying, well, no, they actually substantially commenced in 2 years by doing X, X, and Y. So it provides certainty to the whole community.
So we should be dynamiting the hill.
That's too simple.
Okay, so do we have,
Thank you, Mayor.
yes, councillor O'Neill?
Yeah, just not really, just a food for thought comment. We're not recommending that to nominate as a councillor you need working with children, but which I agree with, because you should be able to nominate and go through the process. But it probably wouldn't be a bad thing for councillors to have once they become councillors.
Can I respond to that, Mayor? It depends whether you're being exposed to working with vulnerable people. As a councillor, your core roles do not expose you to that. If you are exposed to a particular workplace environment or something where that occurs, then as a consequence of the requirements of that workplace, then for you to attend, you may be required to have that card,
Yeah.
but otherwise you don't.
No, it's probably not a need to have thing, it's probably just a good thing to have.
Well, I mean, if you go to a school,
to
which we
school,
all would have noticed that if you haven't got a working with card, there has to be a nominated staff member that follows you.
But you're dealing again with their workplace requirements.
Yes, that's correct.
And regardless of you having a piece of card, you know, being escorted in places like that and having two adults in the world we live is that process
Yeah.
is better defence
Yeah.
and a better situation for children, but a better defence for all of us anyway. The card won't protect you if you get yourself in a situation where you're one-on-one with a child.
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's our view is that
Okay.
guidelines and processes are actually more pourful than having that card.
Also,
The card might be
small
nice to have.
sporting clubs where it's not as organised and as,
Yeah. Oh, aged care.
aged care
facilities.
Yeah, to
Anyway,
work in the garden there.
just a
Yeah.
thought, and like I said, I'm not pushing anything. Yep.
It's an interesting point where we run a childcare service. I think in those cases, I think there's much more argument that as the governing organisation, we might be well considered to have working with vulnerable children.
But in the
Come
same,
to that.
yeah. You can go.
Yeah. So in the sense of you're not operational management of those centres, as a councillor, you don't have a right or entitlement to just wander onto those centres and activities. So again, when you do go there, you're subject to the requirements of that place.
Okay.
We're not anti-working with vulnerable.
No.
We are just being sensible about, you know, what added value they present, and that the card in and of itself is not the golden ticket to make an organisation child safe. It's actually processes and a structure that makes the organisation child friendly.
Yep, okay.
And I'll just say it's fundamentally anti-democratic in the sense of the person can't be elected if they don't have a card.
To be nominated, you should have it, but
Yeah.
it could be, well, I suppose for me personally, I did have it, I let it lapse, stupid on me, and I probably don't need it, but every now and then you, with football and that, you go to the junior club and you might be coaching them from, it's just a grey area.
You need one then actually to
Well,
No,
yeah.
I don't do that, Mark, but it's possible.
Yeah, and look, we've talked about this with the regulator.
Yep.
We've had meetings, town hall meetings with the regulator.
Yep.
And it came up when we had our meeting at Dover. Councillor Burgess was there, and we're talking about working at Yawn Regional Care in the Garden. Now, even to do that, anyone that wants to volunteer needs a vulnerable person's card, which a lot of the people were older themselves.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the online centre and different things to be able to help them to achieve their card, to be able to go and volunteer. So as we said, it's every organisation has their rules, and as councillors, it's up to us if we choose to have that card, which I chose to do, and I did put the ask around on councillors that did have, and majority of councillors do have them. So, but
Yep.
yeah,
All good.
thank you. Is there any other? You moved that motion, did you?
I did.
Yes. Okay.
No, Mayor, I commend the motion to my fellow councillors.
Thank you. So if that's the case, I'll put that forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors present, and the motion is carried. Report number 15.026/24. Proposed motion, did I just? Is it? Yep. Gotcha. Proposed motions for Local Government Association of Tasmania Legat General Meeting. I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Armstrong, and a seconder. Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Armstrong, do you wish to? Not at the minute. Do I have any other comments?
Yeah, if I can just mention
Yep, you can.
Just the motion that councillor Gibson had moved, councillor Gibson may be bringing that back before council at some point in the future, depending on what the outcomes of the report are.
Okay. Thank you. You're ready, aren't they?
It's a big agenda.
Yeah. Any other questions on this one?
Just give them a minute.
Just got to refresh our memories. It's
Yeah.
been
Yeah, no, go for it.
Yes, people see this and think this is the agenda, but they don't realise
Yeah.
that's the agenda.
One item in the
Yeah.
agenda.
One of them. Fully attachments.
I think the carriageway concept is a really good clarification of what seems to be a silly rule. I don't know if it's worth just outlining for those people listening what we've proposed there.
Through you, Mayor, I'm happy to explain it. So there are many properties within the Huon Valley that, particularly within the rural, agricultural and landscape conservation zones, that rely on a Crown Road Reserve access to get to a public road. The Crown Lands Act currently requires that they have to get a licence or they can request an easement to be created. With the commencement of the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, those three particular zones now require to have access before an application to be considered, a right of carriageway to the council or state road. The impact of that is that then development will be delayed at some significant cost to the owner of the land to organise the easement so that they can actually get their approval through. In 2009, there was a review of the Crown Lands Act, which made a recommendation that there be statutory rights of way created over Crown road reserves, and that there be some details and responsibilities about responsibilities for the landowners using them. This council supported that at the time. The government was going to go away and do something about it, but it was never heard of since. The proposal is that they act on that and make those road reservations a statutory right of carriageway. That will reduce the need for any people to get licences. It will reduce the need for people to get rights of carriageway over them. It provides certainty to all the property owners who have bought these properties and used those reserve road for access and relied upon them for years. It was the Crown who created that issue in the first place. So it needs to be solved, and it takes up a considerable amount of time of the Crown, as we understand, because we get consulted on every application for licence, purchase, a right-of-way easement. So this provides certainty for everybody all round and reduces work for the government and provides a much more efficient system.
And it makes it simpler for people who just want to get on with their lives and build their house or whatever.
and it saves people money.
So well done. Certainly excellent motions.
Do I have any other? You want to close, Councillor Armstrong? Okay, if that's the case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Okay, councillor appointments, and I have to do with that. Yeah. Go. So, this is, that's the one they've got to pass, isn't it?
Yes, so through you, Mayor, there's an amended recommendation, an addendum. 3 nominations were received for the audit panel member. 1 nomination was received for the Southern Tasmania Regional Waste Authority. On that basis, Councillor Jessup, who was a nomination for that, would be elected and declared elected, and a ballot will occur for the audit panel members. The amended recommendation notes the election of Councillor Jessup and authorises the ballot to occur.
So,
I don't understand why it wasn't the most contested place. Wasting's good.
Okay, so 15.027/24, councillor appointment addendum. Do I have a councillor to move the motion?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Second up, councillor Burgess. Right. Do we then vote on that now before? Yep. Hugh, any comments on that? Oh, I know what I meant to do. Good. Okay, because I forgot it last time. I was trying really hard not to forget it this time. Any comments on that? No? We'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Now, I can ask Councillor Armstrong, Gibson and Robertson, if you would like to have a minute or two to say why you would like your vote for the audit panel.
Well, as per usual, I really don't know what to say, but I don't know a lot about the audit panel, and I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I know about the audit panel, but I would like to experience it up close and personal because I haven't had a lot to do with audit panel proceedings. I'd also like to know a little bit more about how they govern and oversee local government. So I would like to get inside the clock and see how it's ticking, basically. And I think that would be productive with me understanding other things and educating myself as we go along. So that's my thought process on the audit panel.
Councillor Robertson?
I'm interested in good governance and supporting the organisation to have good systems enabling that. I see that as a key function of that audit panel. I think I've got a strong background in auditing and systems and governance myself. So, yeah, I'd like to contribute.
Thank you. And Councillor Gibson?
Yeah, I looked through the criteria and I think I've got some good analytical skills to assess systems and policies. I have attention to detail and I like to pursue discrepancies. I'm committed to ensuring accountability across council. I think that's really important. I think I've got some skills in clear analysis and communication, which could be useful. I always plan for the long term, so that's an architect's job, I guess. Yeah, I've got 30 years experience in small business in my professional career, and so I guess that's my financial sort of credibility. It's not incredibly strong, but I have been doing that for a long time. And at the moment I do have the capacity to do the job, and yeah, I'd like to have a go at fulfilling that role.
Thank you. Okay. Pass on to the Director.
Through you, Mayor, I've just forwarded the link for voting to all councillors, so please check your emails. The voting is 3, 2 and 1. 3 for the most favoured candidate, 2 for the next favoured, 1 for the least favoured.
What was it again? 3.
3 for the most favoured, 2 for the next, 1 for the least.
Emails.
No emails yet?
You did this last time.
Matt, you don't need us? You can use Sandra? Okay.
It's a machine.
I'm watching responses come through.
Has everyone got their email yet?
I have 4 responses.
You have an email.
This is important.
Why not?
I'm not doing making a statement there, Paul, but they left you off the email list.
There it is. Mine just come through, Paul, so.
Okay, just in time. Refresh, I guess.
5.
Debrief isn't until 10 o'clock. Debrief isn't until 10 o'clock. So after we pack up, we can go through.
It's exciting stuff, isn't it? Isn't it?
I still have 3 to come. I
Anybody
can't,
not got them yet?
Who hasn't received the email
I
yet?
have 1 to come.
Paul still hasn't got his yet, it says.
Try going out of email.
Yeah, close your email and start up again, see if it pops up.
We did that
Have you got
once.
the link, Paul? No. Maybe I can send that again unless you want to just email me separately. That's quicker.
Little one. We used to do it with a piece of paper in the jar, didn't we, Sandy?
I think somebody had to pull an account, that'd be more
Yeah.
something.
You don't have Matt's emails going to junk or something, do you?
It's a loaded question.
It's pretty serious.
He's got a special directory from that.
Present.
Yeah. I checked my Wi-Fi. It's all working.
No, I haven't got anything from you.
Weird.
Sandy, got a blank piece of paper? Yep. Can we give him a blank piece of paper? Thank you. Yeah.
I've just sent you a test email now, Paul, see if you get that.
Oh, thanks.
Somebody else.
Yeah.
Did you get an email from me?
Hmm?
Have you got an email from me? I just sent you one.
It's gone. It's fried.
Conspiracy.
Got there in the end.
Or you may have.
Oh, okay.
Matt's now needing to use his fingers to carve, he can't get the computer to do it for him.
We have to do it again?
Yeah.
There's an exclamation mark on my Outlook. That
Means you're not connected. Does it say down the bottom not connected or trying to make
reminding
connection?
me there's a council meeting, I think.
Oh,
If you check your authenticator, maybe you're getting authenticated.
okay.
So through your mayor, the votes are Councillor Armstrong, 15, Councillor Gibson, 18, and Councillor Robertson, 15. Councillor Gibson is declared elected.
Congrats. Congratulations.
Can't even vote properly if you got him on the audit panel.
Yeah.
Welcome, Paul.
You want to say anything, or you're happy just to accept that?
Oh, thank you very much. I accept that. Oh, yep, I'll do the best I can.
Thank you. Do we have to, we don't have to do no more with that? Okay, thank you, bye-bye. Okay, we're on to report number 15.028/24, review of Public Interest Disclosure Act 2002, Procedures Government Corp 015. Do I have a councillor to move a motion, please?
Sorry, where are we, please?
15.028/24, page 79.
Oh, yes, I was on the right page.
79.
Yep.
Which one's 16? Councillor Robinson, and a seconder. Councillor Gibson, do you wish to speak to that? No, you're right. Anybody else got anything else to do with that one? No?
So these are only protected people still, so they're employees, councillors, and stuff like that.
Contractors, yes.
Not members of the public.
Not members of the public. The Ombudsman has previously asked us to look at a whistleblower policy. Certainly, that needs to be considered as to what it actually takes into account. We're doing some work on an integrity framework, so we'll consider that as part of that sort of process.
Wouldn't that be something we'd flick up to Legat to do as a national sort of statewide project or something?
Look, it may be, but certainly the public interest disclosures are based almost 100% on the Ombudsman model. Yeah.
Okay, well, if we don't have any other, you don't have a close, Councillor Robertson? No? Okay, well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, councillors. The motion is carried. Now, next one is report number 15.029/24, General Policy Review. And we have them listed there. So that's on at page 83 of 116, we're right? Yep, I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Gibson. I'll let you have a read. Oh, you're right. You're right before? Okay, all right. Do I have it? Yes, Councillor Armstrong? Yes.
Look, I really still, I put some comments into the draft nature strip and road reserves policy. And I still hold significant concerns about that. We've been talking about the challenge of compliance and our planning permit system, and yet we're proposing this policy to implement more bureaucracy and give ourselves additional compliance work to do. I think our approach to compliance needs to be based fundamentally on good, clear communication with our residents and our neighbours. These nature strips are ultimately our land, and if a neighbour wants to do something to make that nature strip more usable, more friendly for their community, or as a gateway to their own property, I think that's generally a good thing. So the suggestion from staff is to still maintain this process of needing a permit for any non-standard treatment of a nature strip or road reserve, and I'm not comfortable with that. I note other councils in Tasmania, Clarence City Council has a set of clear guidelines for the simple situations where a permit is not required, and I think Huon Valley could very easily implement something similar. I think let's make it easy for people to do the right thing first, then ask them to work with us via a permit where things get more complicated, and then we've always got that compliance position to fall back on for enforcement.
I think that we did discuss this, and we have, you've made that known. I think that at the time, it was also stated that other people didn't, that other councillors thought that the policy was fine for the reasons that they had. Moving forward, I suppose it is whether you wanted to move something different or take it out or do whatever and see whether that got up or whatever.
Sorry, Councillor Gibson, we do address this in paragraphs 75, 76 and 77 of the report because it was something that was subject to those discussions. And certainly the Office of Advice remains as a permit system, but also take into account the issues that were raised by councillors would be that 12-month review of the policy.
Cool.
Is there a cost to the permit, is my question?
Yes, $100.
So it's lower than our, we're acknowledging that it's not of the same magnitude as infrastructure, but it still has a processing cost.
Yeah, to check sight lines and all that sort of stuff. and
Yep.
Make sure there's.
I'd propose, I'm not comfortable with it, so I'd propose an amendment to the motion to remove this policy from the list of approved policies. I agree with the need for a policy. This one isn't there in my view, and we've had a discussion around policy setting with the managing unacceptable customer behaviour policy, and we put that one through. This one I think could use a bit more work to make it accessible and useful for our community. This one does affect everyone in our community rather than just a few people, or potentially a few people. So I think it's a big enough and prevalent enough issue to do some more work on and improve.
Right. Have you got?
Would you want to put forward a proposal? Something to work
So-
with
Removing that one.
So
as a motion, maybe?
I think if the motion was supported, staff could gain enough feedback from councillors on the direction of amending that policy. And it's just, at the moment, the way it sits in the document, it's a really dry, inaccessible document. But this is something we want, this is relevant for everybody. So,
Well, not everybody, but
There are a lot of people who'd like to.
not everybody.
No.
Yeah, there are some people who don't have that council road frontage.
And more people will do it, I think, if we promote it.
We want to encourage greening our verges, which is,
yes.
but I'd like to see a proposal to sort of.
Or can we,
I'm happy to defer, but I'd like to know what we're actually proposing rather
can
than.
we put it out and see how it works and then review it? It's got the sunset clause of 12 months in it.
So another way of looking at it is that we do have a consultation policy with our community, and to my understanding, we haven't consulted our community on this.
That's correct. Yep.
So should we? I think we should. I
Well,
think this affects many
So
people.
you want to move?
Remove C.
So I'm happy to remove.
Amend it to remove that one.
Because it puts us in limbo then.
Yeah. But if Amy moves it, then she needs to get a
We don't have
second
one
now.
now.
Either.
We don't have one now.
So we're not going backwards. So remove C, and we could replace that with to place the proposed rural roadside nature strip and road reserve policy out for public consultation for 4 weeks. The standard is.
At what level?
Sorry?
Just at what level of consultation? Just consult. Consult. Yeah.
Yep.
So that would go out on there would be a for information via the website that we promote on. We promote via social media and the website, etc. Get people's feedback on that, on the policy we can
There's
take.
not a huge cost in that, is it?
No, the cost is on officer time who has a program of work, but it's not a significant piece. I'd want to give you advice on really it will come down to when we can do it, and then ultimately what council meeting it will be deferred to once we get that advice. What we do with it, if you want to then workshop that advice, or let us incorporate that and come straight back.
It's going to push it down the road to 6 months or something, isn't it?
Potentially it could. I'd hope it could be done quicker than that. But we do have a having just looked at the councillor workshops out to the end of the year, given that we're trying to bring forward, or we are bringing forward our budget setting and prioritisation processes by several months, we're into that. So we do have a busy agenda right out to the end of the year from a workshop perspective, but we can talk about adding some more stuff in there.
We can adjust that for the part of the December policy review. So that'll go to the November workshop. So we'd have to engage before then. Otherwise, it'll be in the next batch of early in the new year.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll just comment too, the other thing it does is this policy would absorb the no spray policy. And my reading of it is that it does shift the emphasis or obligation a little from the current setup of that. So I am a little concerned about that. If you, for example, were operating an organic business, my understanding is that at the moment you can put your claim or your preference for no spray on that verge, and then that shifts the obligation to council not to spray on that. Whereas in the new policy, there's a shift. Council will notify you before the annual spraying season, but it's up to you to demonstrate that you have maintained that verge to spec, which is something like 10 centimetre high vegetational grass. And then, and so that shifts the onus. And so therefore it's not as cautious for instances where people might potentially have significant concerns about spray application adjacent to organic businesses and that sort of thing.
You're right to an extent, but the obligation always existed in terms of in signing up to that no spray register. It was there, so the obligation, there becomes a positive obligation to maintain your roadside, which unfortunately isn't done in many cases, and which leaves us as the road authority exposed and with real liabilities. And so what we're trying to do is improve the balance, improve the communication, the education, that kind of stuff, not make, I do this and it's a set and forget, and my property will never have spray on the frontage. We're also attempting through it to minimise the application of spray, because there are places who are maintaining their verge, aren't on the no spray policy, on the no spray register, who, and we have a tabletised map that the spray contractor or our guys will follow. This allows us to actually judge if that's a maintained verge. I'm not gonna spray it, and we believe that it'll mean less spray overall. But it does give more, it enhances that positive obligation on people that yes, you need to maintain. If you want no spray, you need to maintain your verge. It's always been there, but previously we've been in a position where we haven't been able to enforce it very well, or in fact come through and say, we're very sorry, we know you don't want this to be sprayed, but we can't tolerate the obstruction of sight lines and the damage to the roadway that's being caused by you not maintaining this frontage.
So if your property has no verge and directly abuts the council road, and you don't want the council to come and spray your pastures out to a couple of metres, we have to pay a $100 fee to have a verge permit.
No. That's two separate things.
Well, so for example, our property, the Howland Road, is directly butts up to our property.
Yep.
So how would we still put a no spray register in if we've now got rid of the no spray policy?
You can still notify us of that,
Yeah.
but ultimately you need to be maintaining your area. But council isn't coming through and spraying over a fence line into people's properties.
You'd come and kill all my hawthorn hedges.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank goodness I weren't heritage.
Yeah, But I mean, that's,
So we are on the no spray register, but we don't have a verge.
and
So that's
despite that, we.
No, this was when you did it. Then we went on the no
So
spray
the
register.
example you're
Yeah.
giving now of those ones where there's no actual verge and it's straight on, that's exactly the kind of place where instead of relying upon a line demarcated on a map that says this is no spray, we just wouldn't be spraying it because there's no requirement to spray it. At the moment, it's just, follow the dotted line. And in running a contract, that's how we need to do that to administer it. So this gives us a different way of managing it, which is needs based as opposed to some previous advice. And many of these are very aged as well. They've been no spray for years, and we do have real issues with unmanaged verges on the no spray register.
Okay.
But you may want to workshop it more. Our hope and intention was to get this through so that we can take a more educated approach this season, because the spray program will be commencing in soon. Yeah.
Okay.
So through you, Mayor, just to clarify, Councillor Robertson's happy. The proposed amendment is the same as the motion A and B. C would become the proposed nature strip and road reserve policy Gov Asset 004, included as attachment 10 to this report, be released for public engagement at consult level for a period of 4 weeks. And D would be the same.
12 weeks.
4 weeks.
Sorry.
Now, that was Councillor Armstrong, did she? Yeah, move that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so would she accept the,
Gosh, it's such a thing, isn't it? I do. I get what Amy's saying. I kind of agree with her, and I'm in two minds about, like, the consult would be good and the verge protection or management is also good. I think if we're charging people, we're sort of making money out of them for money that we're going to save by not having to beautify verges later down the track. But at the same token, that could be problematic in that you might have verge, no verge, so you stop, start, which would be a pain in the butt. Happy to do a consult, see what happens.
yeah, right. So that can just be a acceptance of,
That's accepted, and Councillor Gibson as a
yeah,
second.
as a seconder. All right, well, yeah,
Can I
councillor.
ask you a question on another policy, if we're happy with that, just to forewarn that?
Yeah, because we're voting that as a,
So page 761, which is the, so I've got to find it now. I do, and I note, just for those watching and listening, we did workshop all of these, and we have had them sent out to us. But there's a clause on 761, which I don't remember sneaking in. And just remind me, it was to talk about the, we're adding in that there be a social licence measure for our investment, so we make sure they're ESG rated. And we had a hard rule there, but there's a paragraph which I don't remember coming in, which is in addition to comply with investment risk assessment framework percentages, there may also be times where institutions who have a high rating may need to be invested with. This is on a case-by-case people as approved by the Director of Corporate Policies. So in other words, we're taking a higher risk investment because we need to invest with them. I'm trying to think of what, the Shah of Iraq or something wants us to invest in order to send us some SEALs or something. What would be the scenario that we would be forced to invest with a less high risk, but with a more high risk investment? I just don't like that paragraph.
Well, you confused me successfully.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. So 761. So we talk about a whole range of, and I know Penny's not here, so my apologies for that. But yeah, we talk about a whole reasons why we would choose certain investments of an A1 standard and why they should invest with an institution that has and this is just to do with the ESG rating, I'm assuming. So what it's saying is, yeah, we've made a decision that we'll invest with organisations that are socially responsible, and to be honest, virtually all our banks are, and major financial institutions are. But then we're saying, yeah, is there an institution in the Valley that doesn't have a high enough rating or something? Is it?
Sorry.
And look, I'm happy to sort of flag it through, but can we just clarify that and maybe put a guideline rule around it or something? Just
Yeah.
What it could be is that perhaps Bendigo Bank isn't as high up the ladder as the major four banks.
Yeah, because I thought most banks in Australia had to be covered under the SRI.
I'm not sure, but that's the only thing I can think of. But obviously, Bendigo put a lot more into the community than other banks do.
Yeah, look, and that's true. Yeah, but maybe if we can have a separate, some words not in the policy, but some separate words around, how that would be managed. And again, it's leaving it down to the Director of People and Corporate Policy, which sort of gives that person the ability to subjugate what we've decided.
Through you, Mayor, just one point on that, and certainly we can do some guidelines which we can circulate to councillors so that everybody's comfortable with the exercise of that delegation. The actual wording, Director People and Corporate Services, should not actually be there. I have overlooked that one. Should just simply be Chief Executive Officer or their delegate.
Right.
As the policy is to the Chief Executive Officer,
Yes.
and then
I knew there was a problem with that paragraph,
yes,
Matt.
yes.
Thank you for
Apologies that
pointing that to me.
I did miss that.
But still,
I'll
that
correct that. Fine, problem. It won't
that
give
just
you
moves it
much
up the
more
greasy
confidence.
pole a little bit.
I wish that had solved it for you, Mark, but it won't. Councillor Jethro.
Anyway, look, just a governance
Yeah,
thing.
take your point and struggling to come up with an example of a practical example for you. So yeah, I think what Matt said, put some guidance around it. Will help. Yep.
I think it means high interest ratings.
Well, I suppose it just may need to be invested with, and what would worry me is if an investment which wasn't ethical was holding a gun to our head in some way that we needed to invest with them. That would really worry me from a governance. Now it's not going to happen.
No, it's not.
But
I'm worried that we're sitting here trying to work out what the information in front of us actually means.
well, they're complex policies, and
Well,
don't,
they are,
yeah. But it could also mean a government instrumentality. It might mean that in order to get a government grant, we need to invest so much with the Tasmanian state, whatever they're called, financial bank thing. But yeah,
But in Paddy's defence, she would have explained it to us had she been here.
correct.
And I haven't discussed this one in detail with her, so
I just don't remember talking about that
Yeah.
particular paragraph.
And I wasn't in those workshops either, so I'm caught on the hop
So
here.
I'm happy if you change it to CEO or their delegate, and we just get a bit of couple of paragraphs on what would be some examples of that.
And you've got that as well? Are you happy with that, councillor?
I haven't included
Well,
that.
there's
as a
no-
form of
there's
amendment.
nothing, just yet.
Just noting that for the purpose
Okay,
of
all right.
record.
Oh, do you need to note your change to CEO? Does that need to be?
Not officially.
Okay.
We'll make that as a change, and certainly it's recorded publicly.
All right. Yep. So you've got is there any other, or you've got any closing on that?
No, I don't. I would like to see the verges, if people are going to plant them out and make them pretty and save council money and whatever I would like to see them not having to pay $100 fee, but I also understand that there is a fee because things do need to be investigated. But I guess at the end of the day, can we make it a simple process whereby we can specify what they can and can't plant, which would not then interfere with underground bits and pieces?
Back to consultation now.
Yeah.
So you've got 4 weeks to think about that now, Deb.
Yeah, Amy brought it up though. It was your idea.
So I've got 2 spots on our rural, and there are 2 places on our road frontage where we've planted blackwoods. Now, the policy says that, as this otherwise stated, this policy does not require approval for landscape nature strips existing at the date of commencement. So I'm right with those, but if I wanted to do another corner coming up, now one corner is a very wet, boggy corner, so we put some trees in and have pruned the stems so that there's clear visibility as they've grown. But that's to dry out that section of bank. It's a public service and it's good and it gets more trees in the world.
What happens with roots under the road and all this?
Sorry, can I just clarify, you're referring to a rural block?
I am, but this is
Which doesn't apply. in
no,
this-
that's right. But I guess I wouldn't be allowed to do that.
No.
I'm not allowed to plant trees on a rural nature strip either.
That's under the tree policy, but what you're talking about, I think we're conflating the nature strip one is totally different. Nature strip is for urban areas, and that's the one where the $100 fee and whatever
So the
applies.
nature-
Where we've got buried infrastructure, telephone lines, all these type of things, footpaths, people walking,
Obstructions.
etc.
Yeah.
Totally two different things.
A roadwork permit must be, 6.2.4, a roadwork permit must be obtained prior to planting any vegetation on a rural road reserve with the exception of grass seed.
That's planting trees in the road reserve in a rural area, on a rural block. You're correct, but that is not the. If that's the exception case that you're looking for, that's quite. That's
Different to the.
well, it's potentially more tolerable in the short term, but these are also the ones that end up with trees planted that then council comes along, and as we've just seen with all this wind, it is the pruning, the potential damage, the obstruction to roads, etc. So we may not have the, from an assessment point of view, that what we're trying to do is give people advice on actually that type of tree really isn't suitable here, and that at the moment does happen on a regular basis.
And I think a contribution to that is that council isn't clear in putting forward and explaining what its expectations are. So if we word this policy well and put that forward well, then we're going to deal, I think, with a substantial number of those cases.
Can I make the suggestion that we've amended the motion to take this out?
Yeah.
Let's have this conversation in a workshop or something.
I was just making sure that Councillor Armstrong was happy to then continue on with that.
She's happy.
Well,
Please be.
Yeah, I'm happy to investigate it.
yeah.
So let's do that.
Okay. So, well, no other conversation on any need?
We need to say who says what anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I could put the motion that the motion be put.
You could,
If I'm,
but I was giving Councillor Armstrong time to debate in herself whether she was happy with those.
I am happy
Yep.
with that.
Okay, all right. I'll put that motion forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. Yes, it was. All councillors, the motion is carried. Okay. Report number 15.030/24, lease of public land, Dover Old School, part of 17 Chapman Avenue, Dover. I'll refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Gibson. And a seconder? Councillor Bruce. There you go. I'll get it right. It was like Councillor Chambers Smith. It was Chambers Smith and lots of different things until everyone got their tongue around it. So I'll get there. Okay. Councillor Gibson, do you wish to speak to this motion?
It's fairly straightforward. There was no other interest. I guess the only question is, was there an expression of interest put out? Or?
Through you, Mayor, no, there was no expression of interest, so this has been considered on the fact that they are long-standing tenants of the premises.
I'm very comfortable with that.
Okay. Do I have any other comment on that? No? If that's the case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. This is for,
The same building?
yep, the same building and the other, yep. Report number 15.031/24, lease of public land, Dover Old School, part of the land located at 17 Chapman Avenue, Dover. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Jessup and Councillor Burgess, seconded. Do you wish to speak to this, Councillor Jessup?
Again, I'm assuming that they are long-standing tenants based on what I've read, so I'm happy that that continues in the interest of the community down there.
For the Dover history, yep. They do great things in that part of the building there. Do I have any other comments on this one? No?
It's a cool little building.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion was carried. Report number 16.017/24, financial report July 24. I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Jessup and seconded Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Jessup, do you wish to speak to this?
I think it's fairly self-explanatory, but we're still waiting on 30 June finals, aren't we? Yep, so they're not covered in here. But no, I'm happy with, we've successfully achieved the first month of the year without going broke, so that's a really good achievement.
Looking good.
Do I have any other questions or comments on that? Yes, Councillor Bird?
A question about where the money's invested. I see the poor old Bendigo Bank doesn't get much at the moment, and I think Councillor O'Neill at times is.
Yeah, that's investment policy.
No, am I the wrong one?
No,
No, it shows up on, in our financials,
yeah,
where we've got money invested.
Yeah.
Investment policy impacts on what we put into Bendigo Bank.
Correct.
yes.
Yeah.
So if you have a look at our policy, that's something that would have to be investing
Yeah.
to make
If we were to
changes.
change the balance of investment.
Yeah.
It's based on the policy.
It's based on the policy.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I understand that. But have we ever looked at the reason that Bendigo Bank puts hundreds of thousands of dollars back into our Ewan Valley each year? Or have we ever looked at anywhere along the line, is there a percentage we could allow for it? Because obviously they've got a lower percentage at the moment, and that would be because of the policy. But do we make any adjustments for
Yeah, we have.
the social goodness that they
We have at
do for
some
us?
stages, we've gone through, asked that same question, and when we've looked at policy and we have invested more, I think it depends totally on, at the moment, on the rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
They are the worst rate of all the investments.
Well, they are the worst rate, but none of the other banks invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into the Ewan Valley in the form of grants. So I don't know. Do we make an allowance for that?
we can talk about the policy at another.
Another workshop?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think it's including the guidance on that
Yeah.
same matter.
Yeah.
Is what I took from our previous
Yes.
discussion.
Yeah.
Just went through.
Yeah.
Because that's some
It's
of
more or less along the same lines, but I think that basically when we talked about that policy originally in the workshop, it was all more or less on the ethical side of it.
Yeah.
That this decision was going to be made by your department or whatever to whether it was ethical or not. And I think that was the answer we got from Patty at the time. So, yeah, didn't really give any examples.
Well, when we look at Mark's probing question, we can, we can,
Slot that one in there?
Yeah.
No, too, so that's.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you, councillor Burgess. I like number 6. Council has no borrowings. Yeah, okay. So, councillor Jessup, do you have anything else?
No, following on the point, I can't see a reason why base at A2 can be up to 60% policy exposure. So yes, it would be good to get a separate explanation of being. But no, look, I think we've got good confidence, Mayor, that Paddy's team are really on top of the finances. Obviously working on from work that David had done. So I'm very comfortable that they're looking after the ratepayers' interest.
Thank you. All right, well, I'll move that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, councillors, and the motion is carried. We have report number 16.018/24, electricity contract exempt from public tender process.
That's not in the pack, is it, Mayor?
That's the one that we were,
Yep.
yep.
Have you all got a sheet of paper?
You would have had a copy of it.
Sitting on your laptop.
Be on your desk.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
So I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. That the report to seek approval for an exemption from public tender process for council's new electricity contract be received and noted. Pursuant to Regulation 27I of the Local Government General Regulations 2015, council approves the non-application of public tender due to the extenuating circumstances of a limited Tasmanian retail electricity suppliers market. C, that the CEO or their delegate is authorised to negotiate the contract to engage an electricity consultant to conduct a request for quote and revelations proceeds from Tasmania's electricity retailers to approve the successful supplier and accept an offer made and negotiate and enter a contract or contracts with the electricity suppliers recommended by the consultant as a result of the RFQ process. So do I have a councillor to move? Motion, councillor Jessup, and a seconder, councillor Gibson. Councillor Jessup.
Mayor, I think the nature, what we're saying here is the nature of the sector is that they're not going to reply to FAQs and things like that, so it's more a direct negotiation sort of model, which I'm happy with. I'm just thinking from a governance point of view, can we, maybe with Part C, can we add a Part C to Part C, which says something like that the number and names of providers approached and who engaged with the tender process be reported to closed council. Not that I'm saying I don't trust you, but just for good governance, I'd like to know that we approached these 5 companies. 4 of us told us to bugger off, or just so we can sign off, and that should be closed, obviously, not.
Yeah, that'd be a closed item. But yeah, absolutely. That's
Okay. Paragraph 31.
Have you already put it?
Following the FRQ process undertaken, engagement associated with the decision will be commercial in confidence and relate to a closed council meeting.
Isn't that what Councillor Jessup's saying though? He just wants it enshrined in the recommendation.
Yes.
Which is what we were going to do anyway.
I had missed 31, and it would go a bit further than just saying who we did approach. But do you get the wording for that, Matt? Yep, cool.
Just to be clear, in the spirit, we're not trying to avoid a public tender. There's real reasons for it, and the spirit of a public tender is to maximise participation. The state being what it is, through a quotation process, we will be going directly to all of them, so we're not missing out on anything you get from a public tender. But we believe, on qualified advice, that we'll get better participation. Yep.
And because we're not massively big, but we're not massively small either. Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we're kind of in a hurry.
Well, the hurry part is in the way it works is you get that small window of time to make a decision, and that may not necessarily line up with a council meeting. So hence it needs to resolve to me to be able to sign off on it. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's good.
Cool.
Okay. Any other? No? Councillor Jessup, do you know? All those in favour of this motion, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. The motion is carried. On to report number 18.007/24, Recreational Water Annual Report 2024. I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor? No? No? Yes, I was going for it. Yes.
Is that your first?
Yes, and
Oh,
councillor,
congratulations.
and councillor Gibson was the second. Yep. Okay, do you wish to have an opening comment?
I just look, might have been even one of the first ones that I read. Recreational Water Annual Report. I was just impressed to see how detailed the examination is. I appreciate that there are 4 new sites, as I understand it, that are now included into the testing program. So I guess that's just great for the community. We're a coastal area, and knowing how safe our waters are is a great benefit to the community. Yeah, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Do I have any other questions on that?
We're going to, I think was it Port Huon that we added? So we did add a couple of sites this year, didn't we?
Sites. Yeah.
And we're going to maintain those 4 sites going forward.
Yeah, ongoing. Yep.
Kathy would be very happy to hear that, I'm sure.
Well, not all. Like I say, there was consultation on where we should go,
Yeah.
and it was focused on beaches that are actually for recreation swimming purposes, as opposed to the length and breadth of a substantial water frontage where people can swim all sorts of places. But we really have to be practical about where we're testing.
And with Hastings, because I remember Hastings having a few red marks last year, and were they upgrading? Are they doing some work to try to get those counts down? Is that the nature of
History through you, Mayor. It's just the nature of Hastings Pool and where the water's supplied from.
Yeah.
So they've they will always have record negative results. There's certainly no way that they can necessarily improve that, but they have obviously a system which operates around that.
They have done some work.
Oh, they have done lots of work,
Yeah.
but it hasn't really addressed the variation.
It's really just in the height of, well, there's a clear, from count 13 down, there's a clear improvement. So I don't know what's happened there, but statistically that would be significant, but it could be seasonality or something as well. It was closed. There's no people in it. Yeah, thanks. Mayor.
No problem. All right then, if there's no further discussion or close, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. It's all councillors and the motion is carried. Report number 18.008/24, Annual Food Safety Report. Do I have a councillor? I'll refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Armstrong, and seconder. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Armstrong, do you have
No questions.
any questions? Okay, do I have any other? No? No? Was that a or do I move on?
Yeah, go on then. I think last time we looked at this report 12 months ago, that there was a comment about the lack of compliance orders being issued, and I'm just trying to find where that is again. But it's probably useful maybe just to reinforce the approach that we take to working with food vendors in the valley is not a heavy duty enforcement, but make sure they, you know,
Well,
improve. Yeah,
well, there are certain things that they have to have.
yeah, yeah.
So you're looking for Part C, which is the enforcement actions, I believe.
Yeah, I just,
Which is on page 903. And yes, the number is again small because we work very closely. It's a standout, I think, for this council in terms of educating the business operators. And, you know, the team do a fantastic job in that avoids further compliance action.
And I can just observe, we have a very, very good food industry in the Huon Valley. I've been responsible for environmental health on and off since about 2008, and we've never had a circumstance where we've had to go in and close down or even get to that sort of a stage. There's been some sale of unapproved foods, but at the end of the day, our food producers or our food vendors are very good.
Well, it's in their best interest to be.
I was going to say, because they're no longer in business if they're not. So.
That also bears out in the next section, Part D, which is just the number of complaints, which is very, very small.
Yeah.
So again, I suppose just highlighting that point to congratulate staff on the work that they do to keep us all safe, really.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you've got nothing to close on that, Councillor Armstrong, I'll put that forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. The motion is carried. 19.039/24. Recommendation is we're about to move into closed council, so I'd like to thank those in the gallery who've all left us and tonight for attending, and those watching at home. The next ordinary meeting of council is on Wednesday, the 25th of September at 6 p.m. We need to, yep. The recommendation is that the meeting now be closed to the public at
8:36.
pursuant to Regulation 15 of the Meeting Procedures Regulation to discuss the following. In closed, do I have a councillor to move a motion to go into closed? Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Burgess. All those in favour? Please raise your hand. That's all councillors. I advise that in accordance with Huon Valley Council's audio recording of council meetings policy, recording of the open session of the meeting ceases at
8:37.